mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Greetings, my friends. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friends, future events such as these will affect you in the future. You are interested in the unknown, the mystery, the unexplained. That is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we bring you the full story of what happened on that faithful day. We are giving you all the evidence, based only on the secret testimonies of the miserable souls who survived their terrifying ordeals. The incidents, the places. My friends, we cannot keep this secret any longer. Let us punish the guilty. Let us reward the innocent. My friends, can your heart stand the shocking facts about grave robbers from out of space? Welcome, everyone. Welcome, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most famous monsters. I am your mistress of ceremony, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
I'm a disheveled goblin today.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
What did you think of that? I couldn't see your face through any of it.
No, good job, because I was pulling some crackers. The future quote is still my favourite of that one. It is such nonsense.
I
Absolute
remember,
nonsense.
my friends, future events such as these will affect you in the future.
Funny that. Funny that.
Oh, if you did not know, we are doing the movie that was once dubbed the worst movie of all time, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Plan 9. Doesn't quite work on my Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Couldn't get more no there other than that, can you?
No, not really.
Jesus.
Right. I'll do the disclaimer and then
Okey-dokey.
we will get on with Plan 9 from Outer Space, because I have a lot of talk to. I possibly could talk about this for hours, I'm not going to lie, but I'm not going to do that to you people today. So, everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us in the Facebook page, Discord, or the comment section, where we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have, though, is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong. We can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of a nerdism.
Don't be a dick.
What the lady said. What the lady said. So, can't really see my notes because I've wrote really small again. So, Plan 9 from Outer Space is the 1957 independent science fiction film written, produced, directed, and edited by Edward D. Wood Jr., starring Gregory Walcott, Mona McKinney, Tor Johnson, Vampira, and the ever brilliant Belalugosi. Dubbed the worst movie ever made. Let us punish the guilty. Let us reward the innocent. As Monsters Up North brings you Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Well, what the bloody hell was that all about? I would love to know.
Hey.
I mean,
what a movie.
In every way, I can see why it's a cult classic.
Yeah.
It has everything wrong with it, but it has so many things that you can just go, I really loved it because that was so bad, it was good. But then the fact that Edward D. Wood Jr. took it to the point of where he thought that's what serious filmmaking was.
Yeah, this was meant to be his, this is his, like, what was
magnum
it?
Opus. Yeah.
Magnus Opus. Yeah, that's it. I can't even say the word.
This was his baby. This was his thing. This was the one film he always wanted to make.
This was it.
And that was certainly something, yeah.
I adore this movie for all the reasons and all the wrong reasons. It honestly is one of my favorites, but what gets me is when you watch it, you go in with kind of like rose tinted glasses, you know. It's a classic B movie, cult classic. I've said classic too many times now. And you kind of do go in rose tinted glasses, and then you remind yourself of the plot. And it becomes right. I'm going to do my best to give you a plot synopsis of this movie. So, aliens, Aros and Tanner, arrive on Earth and try and raise the dead to try and raise the dead to be able to then overtake the planet with the military of the dead. But the military are trying to actually keep it secret. So yeah, 2 aliens are trying to raise the dead in order to take over the planet with the dead. In all their time on Earth, they do it to 3 people. And one is a vampire. Some fucking bizarre reason. Another is a vampire for, again, another reason. And then third one is a genuine zombie. It just... It makes no goddamn sense.
Insert cricket noise. It's just like I mean,
yes. Yeah.
I love Vampira. Vampira is, for those people that aren't familiar, she was the original Elvira. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not beat around the bush. She even sued her about it, but she was talked into doing that. Vampira was a beauty queen type person. She was absolutely stunning, blonde hair, the full booner. And then she decided that there was money to be made on the dark side of things. So she went to a Halloween ball and dressed up like Morticia Adams to try and get some attention. And it did. It worked. They got her to host the Channel 7 TV show where she was doing the same thing that Elvira did in the end, which was to host and then show movies to keep people watching TV. But she was stunning. I mean, she's the only person I've known that hasn't died that's had a 17-inch waist, for Christ's sake. I mean,
oh, her waist in that movie just makes you think, I never want to eat again.
It's tiny.
It's tiny. But so let's go to the cast.
Yeah.
Because there's Vampira.
Yeah.
There's Bela Lugosi as the old man.
Yeah. That's his name.
The old man. And there's Tom Mason is the stand-in. Now, if you've seen the Ed Wood movie, you know the biopic, which is done by Tim Burton, which in all honesty does have a lot of truths in, but does very much sugarcoat quite a bit of it. Yes. You'll know that Tom Mason is a chiropractor, not an actor. He was a chiropractor who apparently had a look of Bela Lugosi. A silhouette look of Bela, sorry, I'm not going to do this again. Bela, and had a silhouette look, and it was uncanny. And he was Bela's stand-in. So at the time, Bela had just come out of rehab. He was actually one of the first known Hollywood stars to go into rehab and allow the press to come in with him. It'd never been known before. Like it obviously happened well. Like, he wasn't the first to go in, but he was the one who openly let the press come in and watch him recover. There's interviews with him the day before he comes out. There's interviews with him in bed. He's just sitting on his bed having a good old chat with the press. He was very, very open about it. And he's come out of rehab, and he's actually says on one of the interviews, I'm just about to go and do a movie with Eddie Wood. And the movie was Plan 9 from Outer Space, which was originally called Grave Robbers from Outer Space.
Yeah.
Which is why it's not changed at the end of Criswell's speech.
Yeah, it was the Baptist influence. They didn't like the grave robbers. They said it was like ungodly, so they changed it to to Plan 9 and then fed that little bit in to Eros's speech when he was going on about like, what plan are you doing? Oh, Plan 9. Oh, let me look. Oh, yes, to rob graves from outer space or something. The explanation was literally the name of the film before they renamed it. So it was just like,
Yeah,
he got in there. He got his little dig in there. He got what he wanted.
he did. He did. But Bela was very poorly.
Yes.
Very, very poorly. And Ed Wood only managed to shoot a couple of scenes with him. Funniest one being Bela walks into a house. Bela walks out of a house. But in the interim, Tom Mason's in the house. You can clearly see that is not belalugosi. He stands there with his hand over his mouth, just showing his eyes, but it is clear enough that is not the old man you've just seen coming trudging on out of the house.
He's too tall. The
Of
guy's
course,
too tall as well.
he's very young as well.
The problem that I had with it was that when I first sort of sat down to watch the movie, I wasn't paying enough attention. I was just trying to get my bearings with it,
Yeah.
trying to work out what was going on. And the more and more I was watching it, now bear in mind, I watched Ed Wood. It came out in 94, Ed Wood.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched it somewhere in 2000s. So we're talking a good 20 years since I've actually seen it. So I didn't remember a lot of the stuff that was in it, but bits and pieces. So when I watched the beautiful scene, which is the last scene he ever shot with Ed, which was when he walked out of the house and he looked all forlorn and he was having a proper acting moment.
He was.
Sniff the rose, drop the rose, and then you hear that god awful car crash and the scream, and it's just like, he deserved better. He deserved better than that.
So much better. So the main plot of the story is, sorry if we're going all over the place.
Yeah, sorry.
But I feel like it's one of those films where you just kind of like, you don't really know where to jump in at all.
No.
So the plot is that Bela's character is an old man who has just lost his wife.
Vampira.
Who was Vampira.
Yeah, which I still can't quite get my head around that bit, but okay.
And he goes to her funeral and dies that day.
Yeah.
And he then gets resurrected. And the vampire bit, Dan, I can't. Vampira's character's name is Vampire Girl. I can't get my head around the whole vampire thing. There's no vampirism in this movie.
All I know is that she said to Ed Wood, I will not be talking. I hate your script. The dialogue you wrote for me is horse shit. So I'm going to be a mute. So I was like,
who else was it? Gregory Walcott, who plays Jeff Trent, who, by the way, is really fucking trying his best.
Yeah, bless him.
He really is trying his best throughout this whole movie. He even said the script was dog shit, but he kind of needed a job, and he was like, nah, I'll do it anyway. But he really is the only one who actually gives a shit. So yeah, the vampire. Stop laughing at that. The stealing bodies, trying to resurrect the dead. They're not very advanced because they've only managed to do 2.
But this is the bit I don't actually recall when Vampira. You don't see her get resurrected. She's just there by a twig.
She's there in the corner, coming out of the corner with her arms out in the air, and for some reason, where they're standing is daylight, where she's standing is night.
That was one of the most annoying things about this whole movie, the flitting between light day, light day, light day, light day, and you're supposed to believe it's all one continuous shot. Continuity was not Ed Wood's biggest. He's a one and done guy, wasn't he? Every time he filmed something, he would never do more than one take because he was always obsessed with perfection, and he always thought the first take was perfect. Because that's what a lot of people have said. He was deluded in that way. He wouldn't waste film because he knew they didn't have a lot of film. He wouldn't waste the possibility. I mean, a lot of this does get touched in the movie, but I read an interview from one of the guys, and I can't remember if it was his sound guy or his cameraman, but they said because he never got permits, they weren't allowed to be in one place for too long, so they
Yeah.
always used to do short little bits. That's why it's so like daylight, nighttime, daylight, nighttime, because they technically shouldn't have been filming where they were filming half the time.
No, he was not great. The movie, he was not great. He was fucking terrible. But he's such an interesting and intriguing person, and almost quite lovable, that you kind of like want to go, oh, we really just want to love these movies.
Yeah.
But you can't. Or you can, I can. But the props in the movies are fucking hilarious. The opening scene with Jeff on the plane and the controller he's holding is literally just a bit of cardboard. It's a bit of cardboard that is shaped in like a diamond shape, and you can see him bending it with his hands.
When I saw that, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then
It's
it
like a
shots in,
notebook. Like literally, he's just bending it all over the place.
and then they both look to the left conveniently, and one of them goes, "Did you see that?" And obviously, you see the flying saucer on a bit of string. Bear in mind, and I went through loads of posts, and they said eventually that it was a 1950s kids model kit of a flying saucer. Even
Yeah,
though people said it was saucepans, hubcaps,
plates.
yeah, you name it. They said that it was all those things, but apparently it really was a kids one that was like made to look a bit shinier for the picture. But yeah, I mean the string. Oh, blimey, George bloody Lucas must have been shitting himself after watching that. Like fucking, oh, just
The
awful.
the sets moved.
Yeah,
Especially with any time Tor Johnson is on screen, the sets pretty much are not in a stable condition because he is a big man. Tor Johnson was a wrestler. And to be honest, his acting abilities is not actually too bad when
well, to
it
be
comes
fair,
to him.
he looked like a fish. Did you not think? With
I actually quite like that detail because he's dead and his mouth would be like that. I like that detail, but he did look like a fish, and I knew exactly who you were talking about the other day when you were like, "What, the guy with the big gaping mouth?" I was like, "Yes, that's Tor Johnson." He tried his fucking best because he's a wrestler, and the character that plays him in Ed Wood, the Tim Burton movie, is quite accurate to like kind of like how he was. Like he wasn't, he was a simple man. He liked his wrestling, he loved his food, he loved his drink. This isn't his life, and
yeah,
he really fucking tried, and you can tell when he's playing the Expector.
yeah,
He's
and
trying.
he didn't have much dialogue, but my favorite bit was the blank cap gun he was shooting at
Pew,
vampire
pew.
and not Bella at one point. You know, when he's got pachoo, and you just see the little puff of smoke come out the end of it, and I was just like, you could hear it was a cap gun, and he was just like, oh,
Do you know what it reminds us of? It
don't.
reminds us of Frank on Always Sunny when he's when they're doing the
When he's
laser
got
quest, and the pew pew. This isn't it.
You've tainted it now for me.
Oh,
Lord.
lordy lord.
The thing about Tor Johnson was he was a presence, and bearing in mind
Yeah.
when they put him next to anyone else, he swallowed the frame of.
Mm-hmm.
I can't explain what I mean by that. It wasn't because he was big, but it was because he was big, if that makes sense, not because of his.
Not because of his size, but his height as well. Like it's everything. It's all
Yeah,
encompassing when it comes to him. And so I do get what you mean. He swallows up the whole room. Like it's
yeah,
just him. And especially with all these other guys are like absolutely tiny in comparison. I think like Jeremy Walcott, Gregory Walcott, my apologies. He's quite tall, but he still can like talk and just swallow him whole.
crazy. It was like, I think it was one of those things when you put him next to Vampira, and you had the two walking together. She looked quite tall at that point, but I mean, I know she had massive heels on.
She was quite a tall lady, mind.
Yeah, she was 5'10", 5.
Yeah, 5'9", 5'10".
She was somewhere up there, and then she'd wear 3 or 4 inch stiletto heels.
Oh yeah,
So
she towered over people. She's still added. She's fantastic. To look at her, she is absolutely fantastic in this movie. I couldn't give two shits if she literally just stood in the corner the whole time, just staring at someone, just as long as she was there.
the
I'll
only
still
issue
never
I
get the
had,
vampire girl bit.
no, the only issue I had with Vampire was those god awful spoon nails. I don't know what they were, where they came from. What the hell were they? They were like someone had got a plastic bit of cutlery, like a knife, and they melted it, and then they just stuck it on a thing. Is that Edward Scissorhands without the sharp bits, like
Yeah.
bowls on the end? They were awful. I mean, I'm not one for acrylics. I love mine. It's about as long as they get, you know. I know you get the people that do have the long ones, but like I just kept looking at them. I was fascinated. And I was like, 1957 was when this came out. So it was around about then it was shot.
Mm-hmm.
It was only shot in something like 20 odd days, this film, which you can tell.
Well, it must have been shot in 56
Oh,
because halfway through this movie, or not even halfway, actually, right at the beginning, sadly, Bela Lugosi dies.
yeah.
Even though, and it's a joke played out throughout the Edward movie, Tim Burton's Edward movie, when people say when he's going, and Plan 9 from outer space, and it's gonna star Bela Lugosi, and everyone's like, I thought he was dead.
Mm. Yeah.
And like everyone assumed he'd been dead for such a long time. He actually only died at the beginning of doing this movie.
Yeah.
But Ed being Ed, he was loyal. If Ed was nothing else, he was loyal to his people, and Bella was one of his people.
I think Bella starred in like 3 or 4 of his movies in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, I actually have a list of his movies because for all that we associate obviously Plan 9 with him, the ever infamous Glenn and Glenda, which to me, that is, if you're gonna sum up Ed Wood, Glenn and Glenda is the movie to do it with. That is semi-autobiographical.
And it's also about a man with dissociative disorder, which he
Yes.
did have in real life as well, which by today's standards, that boy, he would be diagnosed with dissociative disorder. So
And he starred in it.
mhm.
He put himself out there. It's very brave. It's such a brave movie. It really is.
He wrote the theme tune, sang the theme tune. He dressed the theme tune. Yeah, I mean, the fact that he did half the things that he did actually said he did as well. Like the hard thing is to keep going back to Edward the movie is really, really difficult because a lot of that is true.
Mhm.
Like when I've gone back and researched a lot of like, oh, did he really say he wore women's underwear when he was storming the beach in his army uniform and he was praying to God that he didn't get killed because he didn't want anyone to know he had it on.
No, he didn't want it. He wasn't bothered about being killed. He didn't want to be wounded.
That was it. Like
Yes.
he didn't want anybody to see he had it on underneath because obviously the heavy shame factor of the 40s because he was in World War. Apparently he was an exemplary officer in World War II. He was they said he got discharged because he took such a huge hit at one point. That's where he lost all his teeth. Yeah.
In the face.
Yeah. I mean, he did well because he didn't look too deformed. So
He was a handsome man.
that's the thing. That is the thing about all of this. It's how, when I say dissociative disorder, I'm not just talking about his love of dressing in a feminine fashion and also in a masculine fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about it from how he was when he was on set, because a lot of people said he was one of these people that would always look on the bright side, no matter how bad things were. He'd just disassociate with how bad it was and always look to the possible best outcome, or everybody's got to be happy because this is the way it is. And he would completely disassociate from all the dog shit and just see silver linings all the time. And they said it was an endearing thing, but it was also a pain in the ass because some of them just wanted to be mad and he would never let them be mad on set, you know.
And even when the funding went tits up, he still managed to put a positive spin on things and went to a Baptist church.
And got baptized.
Yeah, him, Bunny, Vampira said no. I think Tor did. Bela, was he alive?
No.
No.
No, there was a lot of them. I think the whole cast went, I think.
I think it's actually in the movie that it shows you Bela there. I'm sure of it, but I could be completely wrong. But yeah, that is a true fact. Like I say, the Ed Wood movie by Tim Burton is so close to the truth. It is pretty accurate,
Yeah.
like good. The only things that people have had a bit of a problem with is the wife situation.
Mm-hmm.
So Sarah Jessica Parker's character plays his second wife. Ed Wood was married 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
His second wife, I think it was 4 times. Yeah, no,
I know that
no.
Kathy Wood, who was Patricia Arquette in the movie, was his final wife.
So that's his third wife. So it was only 3 times, right?
Yeah.
So they actually got the two characteristics mixed up
Really?
in a way. Yeah, in a way. His second wife, who was played by Sarah Jessica Parker, they made her out to be unsupportive, disgusted, everything that he didn't need. It's not the case at all. She wasn't. She was very supportive. It was alcoholism she couldn't get behind.
Right.
She left him because of the alcohol, because Ed Wood had a huge alcohol problem. So it wasn't because of the women's clothes or anything. She was fucking for it. She wanted him to be him, be himself. It was Kathy who had a bit of a problem with that side of life.
Yeah.
So they flipped and I don't know if it's because of the actresses who were playing them. They made that decision, because I don't understand, because his wife was still alive. The second one was still alive when that movie came out.
Did you know she went on, like I did fact check what that was put at the end of the movie of Ed Wood, and she really did. His second wife really did write 2 or 3 songs for Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go back and check, because I was like, I'm not saying it's a lie, Tim, but you sum up these little things at the end that are really, really nice, and you always think, oh yeah. But then I thought to myself, okay, check that, and I was really surprised. She must have earned a lot of money off of royalties back then for writing
Massive.
for Elvis, for crying out loud.
Massive. And the second one that the 2 people had a problem with. One was Bill Lugosi's son, and the other was Sarah Karloff, Boris Karloff's daughter, because they made a point about the rivalry between the two, which never actually existed, and that they made Bela swear. He never swore. He never, profanity was not in his vocabulary. So they didn't like that aspect of it, even though that is the funniest fucking line in that film.
How was it being his sidekick or something? He asked him, didn't he? I can't remember the words.
Fuck you.
Brilliant.
It's fucking great. But yeah, there was the only 2 things that I found when I was doing my research on the inaccuracies of the time. Everything else was pretty much spot on, which is, I don't want to say it's rare for a biofilm, because biofilms, I feel like, you shouldn't really sugarcoat it. The only time I've ever seen a biofilm sugarcoated, and I thought, you've got a fucking opportunity to fucking hand Hollywood its arse, like really fucking give it to them, was the Judy Garland movie with Renee Zellweger. I can't take away from how brilliant that movie actually is, how fucking fantastic Renee is in it, but they had an opportunity to fucking stick it to Hollywood for what they did to that woman, and they fucking sugarcoated it.
Well, it's probably backed by somebody that was related to somebody that was related to somebody,
They had such a chance, and they left it. They faltered. I've got some notes of the movie, and one of them I have to get out, because if I don't, I'm just gonna laugh every time I see it. The graveyard scenes.
You mean the twigs and the cardboard and the dry ice?
Yeah, that. And when one of the graves fell into the hole, it was tiny.
The policeman kicking, yeah, it was the whole thing of, I mean, you could tell it was all cardboard. You could tell they were walking over cardboard hills that was covered in what looked like rugs. I couldn't quite work out what the flooring was supposed to be.
It was carpet. I was talking to my dad about this last night because I was saying, "Oh, we're doing Plan 9," and my mum's like, "Oh God," because like obviously she grew up with us and our love for it, and couldn't stop laughing. And my dad's going, "What you laughing at?" And I went, "Tiny graves," and he knew what I meant. It's honestly, it is the size of it is smaller than my phone.
Yeah.
And it falls into this huge gaping hole in the floor, and it's meant to be the grave that they were standing next to. That has no writing on, by the way. I don't know
No.
that you would not put a gravestone without any writing on it.
In his world, apparently you do.
Oh, that set though, it was so brilliantly bad.
The cardboard mausoleum of where Bela was supposed to have been buried. You have so many people coming out of it. It's like one of those minis, you know, like with the clown cars, and all the clowns just keep getting out and getting out, and more people just.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. Like I think 4 people came out of this tiny cardboard box that was supposed to be a. When I say tiny cardboard box, I'm not joking. This thing was no bigger. It was no bigger than. I, I can't even tell you how big it was. It was tiny, and the door frame must have been about 3.5 foot, 4.5 foot max, and they're all bending to get out. And these people are not even leaving, and then the chiropractor comes out with Dracula in the full Dracula garb with the cape over his face like this. And like I say, that's when it took me a little while to twig. I kept looking at it thinking that looks weird. Why does it look weird? And I couldn't place it. And then something twigged in my brain, and I went, "Oh shit, yeah, that's not him, is it?" And then I realized that's obviously I forgot that they'd replaced him. But the guy was too tall, too young. The widow's peak came out of nowhere. I don't know if you've noticed because they put the wig on him.
It was Dracula.
But there was no need for it to be Dracula.
But he wasn't a vampire.
There was no need for Dracula because he was just an old man that died, and he didn't
Yes.
and
But it was Dracula. That was Dracula. He's actually credited as Dracula.
Oh, good Lord.
It's a true story. Which I don't get I've probably said this half a dozen times by now. I just don't get why Vampira was Vampire Girl. Old Man was Dracula. It just makes no sense. All they would do it like, to be honest, the plot, if you kind of break it down, is aliens invade the Earth to bring back the dead to overtake the world.
Yes.
That actually sounds pretty badass and cool. Like, I can get behind that. How they executed it, though, was piss poor. Their plan didn't even go into action until the wifey of the old man died, and then just so managed to bring her back. That took a long time. And then they managed to do it with the old man. That took even longer. Like, these plans were really fucking slow.
This is where I just kept getting really confused because Eros went back to their boss, who was coincidentally already in their ship, and then not in their ship, and then in their ship again, not in their ship.
Funny, isn't it?
Yes, Bunny. If we're referring to the Edwards, it's the Bill Murray character, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't quite find, because I couldn't quite find the actor or anything. I generally couldn't find anything on them.
No, he was just like one of those people that disappeared. But he was saying to him, you know, it was when he said to them, "We'll let them know about our existence when we turned all these people, and they'll know who we are." And I'm like, they won't, because they'll be too worried about getting kidnapped by zombies. So what that, and vampires. So your existence isn't going to prove shit, really, is it? Let's be honest. It's not going to even.
I didn't look into this person properly at all. John Campbell Bunny Beckeridge, from 1903, August 6, 1903 to November 5th, 1996.
Wow.
Was an actor, was an American actor and drag queen, best known for his role of the ruler in Ed Wood's Plan 9 from Outer Space. His only movie credit.
I knew there was I'm trying to think of where I read it now. I'm getting on my own nerves because I didn't write it down, because there was so, like I said, there's
Oh,
so much
he
stuff.
was he was so happy that he actually got a mention in the Ed Wood film and was touched that it was Bill Murray playing him.
I was going to say I was really surprised to see Bill Murray, because I did not remember him in that movie at all. But he played him well. He did
He
it well,
played
like
him really well.
respectfully. He didn't do it tongue in cheek in the 90s kind of camp gay. I felt like he was a bit more respectful. There was the over camp, but then if you look at Bunny was incredibly over camp in Plan 9. So
He's failing health. Stopped because when they found out he was still alive, because this was what happens with these people who they kind of go into obscurity. They eventually come out of the woodwork and like, hey, I'm still here. And then it was oh god, what's her name? Tammy Lee Baker. Tammy Lee Baker, the evangelicist.
yeah, Tammy Lee Baker. Yeah, I wasn't
Tammy
sure where
Lee
you were going, but yeah,
No, yeah. Well, I watched her bio with what's her name? What's her name from It?
yeah,
Hot. Yeah, her. What's her
Jessica
name?
Chastain.
Yes, Jessica Chastain. Oh, she was absolutely fantastic in that movie. And the AIDS victim that she speaks to, because she really, for an evangelicist, she really broke boundaries.
Mm.
Like she did things she was not meant to be doing. And she spoke to an AIDS victim on her television program, and all she wanted to do was just love. It was just nothing but love, loving people, loving life, loving everything, loving existence. And they generally thought, because of the time that interview took place, when they did this biofilm, that he would be dead. He wasn't. He wasn't. He was very much alive, and he helped with the publicity of that film. And they wanted to do the same with Bunny, but because of his ill health, he couldn't take part in it. But
Oh,
he was a burlesque dancer in 1927.
amazing.
Oh my God, I can't believe I didn't even think to type in Bunny Plan 9 from outer space.
I think the thing is, when you look at it on the face of things, there is so much. The vampire element, you've got all the element obviously of Ed's personal life, you've got Bela Lugosi, for crying out loud, you know, so you get sort of swept away with that, and it's one of those things where everybody else in the cast, there is there was an interview done with, it was the same interview I read with the cameraman or the sound man, I can't remember which it was, that said Ed always surrounded himself with the biggest bunch of weirdos, because he felt like he fit. So nobody was really supposed to be there. They didn't really have either the qualifications or the ability that's required to do the jobs that he put them in.
It sounds like right. It sounds right. It's like you accompany yourself with the people who you want to be with, and that's all he. I love it. But we were. I'm really sorry, listeners, that we've gone all over the place with this one tonight, because it's like I say, it's not an easy one to jump into, and it's like just. I don't know how to explain it. It's not an episode like we've done before, because of how the subject matter is that ridiculous that.
It's not a very linear film, though, to be honest with you.
No.
Whilst it isn't, you know, it is in the respect of that. A man's wife dies, you see a funeral, he gets maudlin, he dies, you see some aliens, but you're not sure if they're aliens. You see the pilot spot the aliens, then there's aliens, then you see the you know, the wife's back and she's alive, and then the Dracula pops out, and then there's more aliens, and then a third zombie's made, and then the end.
Before all that, though, remember the scene where they're on the patio?
Yes.
And Dracula is honestly one of the best fucking scenes ever. Dracula is coming up to them, bearing in mind at a fucking snail's pace. Like, Jason walks faster, Michael Myers walks faster than this dude, and they all stand there in horror. The two, Paula and Jeff Trent, just stand there holding each other like, oh, we could literally walk away from this guy. Yes. But they don't. They just stand there in horror. And then you've got the military there as well, and they've got one gun between them. and they're pew pewing. And when Dracula eventually gets to Dracula, if I'm calling him Dracula, when he finally gets there, poof, skeleton.
Wrapped in a cloak. It's like,
I have just described that scene for you completely and utterly accurate.
correct.
I believe so anyway.
That's just how I remember it.
Yeah, and it was the whole standing there just, oh, no.
I
Has
just,
he gone yet?
just
That scene's fucking fantastic though, isn't it?
again, I go back to the fact that Bela deserved better.
But the thing is, Ed thought he was doing better. He
I
thought
know.
in his heart of all hearts, he thought he was doing good by him.
I think he did. I will say, for all intents and purposes, what Ed did for Bela personally,
Mm-hmm.
bringing him back into something that he loved,
Yeah.
getting him into rehab or helping him get into rehab, getting him in a personal, he became a very good friend in personal lives, and Bela accepted Ed and all of his quirks and all of his everything, which was something that you wouldn't expect a 60-something-year-old Hungarian guy that's
Who
you
was
know,
he's very much a man's man.
yeah, that was the thing, because he was a gentleman. But I think
Yeah.
coming from the world of acting and being a thespian, because people forget that Bela wasn't a movie actor, he was a theatre actor. That was his bread and butter. He toured Dracula more times than any other actor at that point. Yes, the film was great, but he didn't. We've covered this on the very first episode, but he didn't get much money for doing that film. He just desperately wanted to do it because he knew the role back to front. But yeah, so I think being in that world, you become more accustomed to people's quirks, their lifestyles, their
choices.
choice, not even their choice, just them, people
Yeah.
being themselves. You sort
Accepting
of,
them.
you have to. I
I
think you
think
have to be very
I
accepting.
think that's a lot. I think that to be a lot said for horror actors as well. They've seen they have to accept the bizarre and unusual and the different when they're accepting these roles. If you, I mean, we were talking earlier about Ed Wood's past films. Glenn and Glenda, I believe, is one of the bravest movies ever made in ever. And then you've got Jailbait. Yep, that's a movie title. But then you've got Bride of the Monster.
Yeah.
I said that's so posh. Bride of the Monster. That was from 1955. This is just before Plan 9 from Outer Space. I'm not joking when I say this is probably some of Bela's. I am so sorry for the name changes. Bela's acting abilities in this movie is fucking incredible. There is a scene, if you've seen the Ed Wood, Tim Burton, you see the scene where he's going, pull the strings. That fucking monologue is fucking outstanding. He is playing God. He is the puppet master. He is pulling the strings, and he has this monologue of all of these people, these ungrateful people, and oh, it is so good. Loki, can you get off my toes, please? I'm having a moment here. It is some of the most beautiful work he's done because he's fully vocal. There's no restrictions. His face is just free to be able to speak in his native tongue, and like, oh, I love it. So good. Bride of the Monster, 1955.
I think for me, this film, I can see why it got the Golden Turkey Award for being the worst film ever made. I can understand.
Because it is fucking terrible.
Everything that you're supposed to have in a film, this does not have. And the thing that gets me as well was when you start looking into how much some of these guys were paid.
Were they paid?
Vampira actually got 200 quid, $200, if I remember rightly. I've got it written down here somewhere. She was paid around $200, somewhere like that. I've got so many notes all over the place. Yeah, she was paid $200 to do it. but she didn't get it. She got part of it and a bit here and a bit there, because obviously he promised he'd get, he'd sort it out for her, but
he didn't.
no, he didn't.
After Plan 9 from Outer Space, he went on to he went on to do Night of the Ghouls, the first movie he did without Bela's name attached to it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then in the 60s roll in, and Ed has no money. Wife is on the verge of leaving. He is deep into his alcoholism at this time. And what does he do to pay the bills? Full-blown pornography.
Look, I'm going to say one thing. My view on porn in general is, as long as everybody knows what they're getting themselves into that's in it, and no one's being taken advantage of, everybody's adults, everybody's of age, you make your living the best way you want to. However,
she said,
there's nothing to be ashamed of with sex work. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a job like everybody else's job. You just do something slightly different than I do. I get up and sit at the desk. You contort your body into positions that only circus performers probably can, but
yeah, that contortionist from that movie we watched, and that I swear to God, I'm having my toes attacked by a kitten. Get off me.
But yeah, it's one of those things where when you found out he went into porn, this is where the grey area happened, because this is where I got confused, because I couldn't find out whether he was directing it or he was in it.
No, he directed it.
Right, yeah, because they weren't specific enough in some of the bits that I saw, and it was it was sort of alluded to, and I was like,
Ed was too wasted to actually be involved in it.
Well, that's what
he directed it,
right.
Because he had I'm guessing because at the time the porn industry was just starting. I don't know. I'm trying to piece my timelines together, and I use Betty Page as an example because at her era it was banned completely. It was very hard to get a hold of.
50s, early 60s.
Then yeah, this will be around that time. And he possibly owned a camera, which would have been to his advantage, which is why he was probably able to do it. And it was just cash in hand. The shot in one day. You could spit 6 movies out in a week. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no pun intended.
I should choose the best hand. Did not use the best choice of words there. But yeah, that's what he ended up doing. But unfortunately, Ed died in 1978 at the age of 54.
No age really, is it?
No age at all, given that my dad turned 60 last year, and everything just. But Johnny Depp turned 60 last year because he the same date as my dad's birthday. Him and Johnny Depp were born on the same day, same year, and Michael J. Fox. Just bring him in there too. And the universe went, you go one way, Mr. Depp, and you go the other way, Michael.
I think the tale of Ed Wood and his delusions of grandeur and the can-do attitude. I was just trying to think of the right way to say that. The upbeat nature, the everything is fantastic attitude.
He is a fanboy.
Yeah, I mean,
Ed Wood is the ultimate fanboy.
I mean, I'm not really sure if he was a fanboy of sci-fi movies though, because I still don't understand how his vision of an alien is a bloke in a tunic in a cardboard box with what could only amount to something that looked like a radio. Used to have these old Bakelite radios in like the early centuries, and if you took the Bakelite plastic bit off, that's exactly what all those bits at the back look like, all the tubes and the wires. And then we get to a point in this film where, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, I've really lost my place.
Wow, we're all over the place, it don't matter.
But the Tor has been turned into a zombie, He's kidnapped the pilot's wife, and taken her to the ship, which, by the way, looks nothing like the ship that's on the piece of string. This is a big box, basically, with some doors and windows on it, which there's no doors or windows on the spaceship that was in the air on a bit of string. And they managed to find their way in. So you have got a policeman, the inspector, and the pilot that have all gone in to the ship, and I use ship lightly, into the shed. And a fight breaks out between Eros and him, telling everybody about how there's this one quote he does, and I can't think of what it is. It was such a ridiculous quote. It I didn't write it down, but it was one of those,
it
I
was
wrote a
so
few down.
good.
No, I mean, literally, you know, like we had the Criswell one at the beginning saying future events such as these will affect you in the future. But you had another one, Inspector Clay's dead, murdered, and somebody's responsible.
Yes, yes.
Really?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes. That's the dialogue is questionable.
I can understand why people got annoyed with it. I mean, the fight breaks out, fires start. I thought the whole set was going to burn down at one point because they didn't look intentional fires. You had some guy in the pilot was wearing what only I could say looked like his dad's jacket because it was so big. When he was swinging to hit Eros or doing their fake fight, it looked like it was like constricting him and wrapping around him, and it was such a bizarre fight. I don't actually even understand how it happened. It was something like he kept saying, I fiend, and I'm like, what?
You what?
I don't really understand what you think you're being accused of. I'm confusion.
I feel like I'm a whole bag of confusion sometimes when it comes to this movie, because half of it, I say half of it, the majority of it just don't make no goddamn sense.
Well, from there, they have the fight, the flying saucer's on fire, and then it flies away.
So yeah, I've watched this, I've seen this 100 times, but I have not seen it for many years. And if you know me, my memory is absolutely shocking. So I watched it on Monday. I actually fell asleep towards the end. And I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to go back and because I need to obviously remember how it ended. And I was like, oh, shouldn't have bothered. It just ended.
Yeah.
I didn't miss anything. No pivotal information,
Yep.
no nothing. I missed nothing.
Except for there was some sort of radio waves that the aliens created to make the zombies do their bidding, and when it got turned off, they just stopped in their tracks.
To make
and
the
then
zombies do
and then
one.
they fell over when it was at the end. Tor and Vampira just fell on the floor, and I was like, it was pretty much that. There was no skeletons. You didn't get to see the floor. And I forgot to mention about the absolute dog shit of the two grave diggers at the very beginning, which were they were studio producers, or they were something to do with something. The two guys that were doing the grave digging at the beginning that did and the dummies
just went, I know.
And then the dummies were so terrible.
It was like tights filled with like stuffing.
There was no trying to hide the lack of budget. I mean, he was just happy that he was made. I think that was the thing. He was just so happy he was getting to make this movie. He didn't care what it looked like at the end. For him, it wasn't about the experience of the audience. It wasn't about necessarily the experience of the actors. He did care about them, but he didn't care that Tor was practically blind in his contacts. Also, that he was having such bad skin rashes from the scar. The scar was never in the same place. Every time you saw him, it moved around his face because the spirit gum stuff that they used, he was allergic to, deathly allergic to. But he didn't care because for him, it was the completion of a movie he got to make himself. There was
Yeah.
nobody like it was the one movie he always wanted to make. So
God, I always see him as the ultimate fanboy because he was I'm not too sure about the science fiction side of things, but definitely horror. Bella was his idol.
yeah,
He absolutely idolized him, and to get to be his friend was something of a life accomplishment at Binksy. I don't know what you think you're doing, but
that's
you best
interesting.
get out. But so yeah, he dies 1978. Now, Vampira, or Mila Numi.
Mm-hmm.
Mila Numi, who you mentioned earlier was a horror host. She hosted from only 1954 to 1955.
Yep.
It's such a short period of time, but she kept the vampire persona up because as you said, it worked for her. She did try and sue Elvira unsuccessfully. Elvira or Cassandra Peterson. I'm just gonna pull another book out of the no, I'm not, because everything's going to fall over. Cassandra Peterson's yeah, you're going to have to go on the floor. Cassandra Peterson's autobiography, Yours Cruelly. Beautiful. I highly recommend this book, if nothing for the fact that she knows how to drop a name. She tells this story about how she's at a party. She's had a huge fight with her boyfriend to where they've broken up, and she's gone to this party and she's talking to Bob all night, this Bob, and she's really getting on with this Bob. And Bob gives her phone, gives her, this is the hotel I'm staying at, ring us up tomorrow and we'll get together and do something. She's like, do you know what, Bob? I will, because you've been such a nice guy. And she rings the hotel up and she's like, is Bob there? And they're like, yes, we'll just put Mr. De Niro through for you. She is so good at telling stories and dropping the name right at the end. But she does talk about Vampira's suing her, and she is nothing but fucking respectful. Like,
yeah, I mean,
she
from
was
what I
very
can
upset
gather,
by us.
yeah, from what I can gather, she was literally, she never hides the fact she was influenced by Vampira.
Nope.
But Vampira herself, when I can see why she was led to bring the lawsuit, because let's be honest,
She was
black hair, boobs are out,
yeah,
tight fitting dress, host of a TV show that's hosting movies or other short clips. There was a lot there that was basically what she did 30 years prior.
Yeah.
So I can get it. But she did an interview where she said she felt like she was coerced into doing this lawsuit.
A lot of people talking in her ear.
Yeah, she didn't necessarily want to do it, but she felt people would told her, you know, this, that, and the other about it, and how they'd gone out of their way to do this, and it was all very malicious. So she believed them because these were people she surrounded herself with that she genuinely thought were true, and it turned out that they were just there for the glory hunt as well. So
absolutely, they thought they were going to get millions. They got absolutely nothing because, as you said, she portrayed her look on Morticia Addams, and nobody came and sued her for her look. So the look was given to Elvira. Not that it was given to Elvira, but she was free to use it as much as she wants. Mila was a very interesting person. She was very good friends with James Dean.
yes,
Very good friends with James Dean.
people still aren't sure what the situation there was.
She claims it was never anything other than friendship. And she could have said more.
Yeah, well, I heard apparently that he didn't like it when she wasn't dressed like Vampira. He didn't like her as herself. So whenever he met up with her, he liked her to be dressed like that, which I found a bit odd because I thought, no, fuck you, buddy. That's part of, it's not who she is, it's part of who she is, you know. But
it's a costume essentially.
well, she did before she died in the early 90s, she did a paranormal show in the UK. I don't know if you know about this, where they contacted or they attempted to contact James Dean. I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but I saw it. It was like a last minute thing when I was searching through earlier, and I was just like, "Oh, give over." But she looked stunning, and I don't know how old she was when she passed, but still looked absolutely stunning in her twilight years, shall we say?
She died in 2008,
Right.
and she was 85 years old.
She must have been, yeah, she was in her early 70s then, I'd say, when this film, because it was about 93, 94, and it was like deathly dark something. It was like a really bad TV paranormal show, you know, when Most Haunted first come out, and then you got about 50 of these other dog shit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a really good documentary on YouTube just all about Mila Nurmi and her life, because it is incredibly interesting. She once claimed that Orson Welles was her dad.
She was a they actually did say she was a she liked to tell a tale or two.
Oh, she loved to spin a yarn.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was when he was married to Rita Hayworth, and she tried to claim that Orson Welles was her dad. I don't think he was.
No, he
But
wasn't.
yeah, she liked to spin a yarn, did Mila. But honestly, I urge you, if you're interested in vampira in any way, there is actually a book. It's in my living room, and I would show people of YouTube it. But it's an autobiography, but it's written from the point of view of her niece,
Right.
and she makes it very clear that this is her point of view from of her auntie.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So she didn't. It's hard to. I know what I'm trying to say. Like this is how she knew her,
Yeah.
and she's done a lot of digging about. She celebrated her 100th year. When would it have been? She was 85 in 2008. It was only a couple of years ago.
2008. So 5 years later would have been 2012, 2013. That would have been our 100-year anniversary. 2013.
Then it can't be it.
No, hang on. Did you say 85 or 95 when she died?
85.
Oh no, so it would have been 2023. Yeah, it would have been last year.
Last year, that's it. I knew that, so it must have been, yeah, it was 100 year, yes. And they did they had a whole celebration at her grave.
Oh,
It was lovely. Her niece was there. One of her very close friends, who is a comedian, he was there and just spoke nothing of just lovely things about her.
I do know she did have one enemy in her life.
Hmm.
Yeah. And this started at the beginning of her career before she even turned into vampira. This was when she was ingenue, a brand new actress, but she got a part in a Broadway show.
Right.
When she was blonde, she had the perfect, 1940s set hair.
Mm-hmm.
Just look when women
Looked
from
the
that era,
part.
women from that era always look so well put together.
Oh, wish I had the patience.
She had a part in a Broadway musical show and a massive show called Catherine Was Great, it was called. And
Oh.
it featured a certain Miss Mae West.
Oh.
Yes. But May got her fired.
Oh no.
She said to the producers that she was not very good, but when it came out years later, she had her fired because she said she kept upstaging her when she walked out.
You do not upstage Mae West.
No.
Oh,
So
that woman
yeah,
is just so fantastical. She's so
for her to
great.
think though that she was upstaging her goes to show that she must have had a hell of a presence when she was on stage.
Massively. If Mae West
It
noticed
must have
you
done. Yeah.
outside of her own ego,
Yeah.
do you know Mae West was one of the first actresses to be very much like health is important,
Mm.
exercise is important. She was vegan, I think, a vegetarian, but she did all these like health videos and health things, and she was like a proper little fitness guru. And I find Mae West interesting, but I love why don't you come up and see me sometime? Love her voice.
She's very much like that.
I try to emulate her sometimes when I'm doing the opening. I do have Mae West in mind sometimes. There's a few actresses who run through my head when I'm doing the opening to Monsters, and Mae does sit in there somewhere. I am like running short on shit, to be honest, when it comes to Plan 9 from Outer Space. Oh, actually, Grave Robbers from Outer Space. I feel like that name is so much better.
Yeah, but it was the Baptist church because they funded the movie. They didn't want too much of the horror element, as they felt it wouldn't do what they wanted it to do for the church.
Oh, yeah. Still a really good name. Do you have any more on Plan 9 from Outer Space?
That there were sequels
What?
and remakes.
What?
In 1995, a sequel called Plan 10 was made, and it was directed by Trent Harris, but it was funded by the Mormon Church.
Oh, what?
And the basically it was all based around the Mormons, the Book of Mormon, and how the aliens were
Joseph
Mormons.
Smith.
Honestly, it is. I literally saw maybe 30 seconds of a trailer, like they'd spliced it into this video, and I was like, nope. So what they've done is they've taken a leaf out of the Baptist church book, thinking, oh, we'll make we'll do a video, but obviously it was more of an instruction on how to be a Mormon than it was about like Plan 9. But yeah, then in 2009, Plan 9.1, a short movie was made where the whole thing was done using only puppets. So it was a remake of Plan 9 from Outer Space, but it was all wooden puppets on strings. But it's called Plan 9.1. I wanted to watch it, but I just ran out of time.
No.
Yeah, honest to God.
You
And it looked pretty. Everybody that saw that, the reviews coming off of that was saying that it was actually really good. It was really well done. So
I can't breathe.
In 2015, we have the remake of Plan 9 from Outer Space. However, it was directed by the guy who did Skeleton Key, the movie Skeleton Key. It's not even anything like the first movie. This one has zombies. It happened, instead of aliens, there's a meteor that crashes to Earth, and then there's blobby liquid that turns everybody into a zombie, right? Conrad Brooks, who played one of the policemen in the original Plan 9, he's actually in this.
Oh, of course remake. He is. He's been riding the coattails of this for years.
But you know the guy in Charmed, not the Australian guy that married Danny Minogue, the Brian, yeah, him. Anyway, he plays the lead in Plan 9 from Outer Space, the 2015 remake. And the funny thing about that movie was, apparently the script was so terrible, characters would appear and then you'd never know what happened to him ever again. They'd like build up the storyline with this character and then you'd never see him again. And it was so badly written.
Have we got anything else for Plan 9 from Outer Space?
Not that I can think of. Everything that I have, I think we've covered. The film is only 1 hour 18 in length, so it's a very short film. And that if you want to see it, the black and white and colorized versions are both available in full on YouTube.
Yeah, Michael did say to watch the colored one, and I'm really sorry, Michael, but I didn't get a chance to, and I am not going to do it after the fact.
I've seen excerpts from the color version, and I mean, I love a black and white. When you're watching something from the era of black and white is how you're supposed to watch it.
It makes it more acceptable.
Yeah, because the minute you put color into some of this, you actually start realizing that it's even worse. You don't need to see detail.
No, I think black and white can hide a lot of its sins.
Yes,
I feel like it can. So they are available on YouTube, and if you want to watch the Tim Burton's Ed Wood, I still think it's on Disney Plus right now.
And it's £3.49 if you want to buy it on YouTube to watch it.
Honestly, own it, because it is absolutely, it's such a good film. It's such a good bio film.
Mm.
And I love a biography.
Yeah, I will say. Also, Grim Life Collective, they do 2 videos. They did one on the actual Ed Wood filming locations, and they did another one on Criswell. And I do have something on here. We didn't really cover Criswell very much, but he was what they thought was a psychic. He got branded a psychic, didn't he?
So the opening that I did is Criswell's opening to this movie. When you start Plan 9 from Outer Space, that is what you are greeted with. And they thought he was a psychic. And if you watch Ed Wood, he completely believes all of his bullshit.
Which is bizarre, because I've got a couple of his predictions here. And one of them was that he claimed that Denver, Colorado would be struck by a ray from space that would cause all metal to adopt the qualities of rubber, leading to horrific accidents at amusement parks. How specific is that?
That is very specific, yeah.
Apparently, he also believed that his most famous prediction, should I say, was in March 1963, when he predicted that the US President, John F. Kennedy, would not run for re-election in 64 because something was going to happen to him in November 63.
He predicted that?
Apparently. He never claimed to be a psychic, though. However, Vampira wholeheartedly believes he was. She was sucked in massively by it. So,
well, I'm sorry, if you predict something like that, I'm going to kind of believe you.
But at the time, that's 1963, he predicted that, in the beginning of 63. Now, that's 7 years after they made the movie. So he must have been bang on about a few things back then that made somebody as sensible and as...
Didn't he used to do like the I predict?
That was his thing, wasn't it? Criswell predicts. That was the name of
I predict. It always reminds us of Bill Murray in Ghostbusters 2.
I see a star.
It's very, he's doing his TV program, and he's next week we have a psychic on, and then he goes to say something, he's like just fingers to the head. Criswell was in the opening of that is I couldn't not do the opening to this podcast and not do that opening. When I heard it, instantly text Dan, and I was like, I am fucking doing that.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, that's Plan 9 from Outer Space in the bag.
Yep. And just remember, future events such as these will affect you in the future.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first. Next week is a bit different for us. And I know I'm saying this quite a lot, but next week we're not doing a movie. We're not doing a person. What we're doing, Dan?
We're going to take you on a little magical ride. No, we're not. You don't want to go to this place.
Not from what I remember.
No, we're going to go to a TV episode from an incredibly popular... No, actually, I think it was only a tiny little... I don't think it was that popular, actually. A TV series called The X-Files. No, I don't know. I don't think anyone's heard of it.
No, I don't either.
But there was an episode that got banned in the US, and then I think it eventually got banned worldwide, but has been released now. And it is called Home.
Because apparently all is forgiven.
Well, I think we get, the older and uglier we get, and the more into the 2020s, our brains can take things a lot better than they were in the early 90s when this came out. So
we're going to do Home. I feel like it'll have a lot of comparisons with other movies that we can kind of delve into. So that is the plan for next week.
Think Wrong Turn. That's where I'm taking you on this little journey.
Ooh.
So we're trying this out for something different. We're not going to stick with X-Files. It's just
it's
just an odd episode that comes along that tickles our pickle. We might wish to share with you. So we're giving this a go.
Wait until the week after kids. I fucking love it. So that is Plan 9 from Outer Space. Next week is X-Files episode home. And we are on YouTube every Monday at 7 o'clock, baby.
Correct.
And our audio goes up on Tuesdays from anywhere you get your podcasts from. You can find the links for Bleeding Marvelous, Monsters Up North, and Nerdy Up North right where Dan is telling you to go.
Down
there. They're right down there. Is that it?
I think so.
Is that it?
Suppose.
I never know how to do these outros, do I?
Yeah, bye. I don't...
See ya. No, I'm not gonna be that cruel. No, I think that's it. I think we've covered everything. It's been a blast. I've laughed for all the wrong reasons tonight.
And I'm just still confusion. So yeah.
It's good. I feel like whenever we do a B movie, we've got to go to the we've got to see if we can get a plot that is more ridiculous than the one we did before.
That's going to be a hard task with this one, I'll tell you that.
That is it.
Yeah.
It. That is the goal now. Well, if there's nothing else to say, we'll say goodbye, Dan.
Bye, Dan.
Stay spooky, everyone. Bye.